Welcome to Void Realities, a place where restless nights dissolve into gentle horizons. Here science becomes a lullaby, stories of time, space, and life told in a voice that drifts like slow waves. If your mind refuses to sleep, let these calm journeys carry you beyond thought, into quiet wonder. This is where insomnia finds its companion, and where your night finds its peace. The secret life of plants. The breath of green. You open your eyes to the quiet world of leaves, endlessly inhaling and exhaling. Each breath you take is tied to theirs, a rhythm woven across time. Photosynthesis becomes less of a word and more of a gentle gift. You discover that every tree nearby is already part of your body. You begin with a breath, in and out, soft and steady. Air moves through your lungs, unseen, unmeasured in this moment. And yet, it is the most intimate of exchanges. Each inhale is not truly yours alone. Each exhale is not truly leaving you. You are part of something larger, something older, something green. You notice this when you sit quietly under a tree, or even when you walk past a cluster of houseplants glowing faintly in the afternoon light. They do not speak, but they give. They do not ask, but they sustain. Every breath you take is, in some subtle way, a gift that passed through a leaf. This is the first secret of plants. They breathe with you. Not with lungs, not with ribs that rise and fall, but with something gentler. An ancient process called photosynthesis. A word you may remember from childhood lessons, perhaps recited with diagrams of arrows and circles. Yet here, at night, as you rest, it is not a diagram. It is a pulse of life. Imagine a leaf as a quiet mouth open to the sky. When sunlight touches it, something miraculous unfolds. The leaf drinks light the way you might drink water. Photons, those tiny packets of energy born in the sun's fiery core, travel across empty space, fall through Earth's atmosphere, and land softly on the thin surface of a leaf. In that instant, energy that began 93 million miles away enters the body of a plant. With that energy, the plant takes in carbon dioxide, the invisible gas that you breathe out. It mixes that carbon dioxide with water drawn from its roots. In silence, it performs a transformation. Carbon dioxide and water become sugar and oxygen. The sugar feeds the plant. The oxygen drifts into the air, waiting for your lungs. Pause for a moment and feel this. The oxygen filling your chest is not random. It has a story, a lineage. Not long ago, it was part of a green body shaped and released by sunlight, water, and air. When you inhale, you are not just breathing oxygen. You are breathing a memory of leaves. This quiet transaction has gone on for more than 2 billion years. Long before humans walked the earth, long before animals filled the seas, tiny plant-like organisms called cyanobacteria began to shape the atmosphere. They filled the sky with oxygen. They laid the groundwork for every creature that breathes. Even now, the green world continues to refresh the air, steady and patient. You may feel alone at times, as though your breath begins and ends with you. But you are never alone in breathing. Every forest, every meadow, every patch of moss growing between stones is breathing with you. The trees in distant mountains, the algae in the sea, the blades of grass in your yard, all are part of the same rhythm. Breathe in again, slowly. That air may have passed through a rainforest, it may have drifted across oceans, it may carry the trace of a pine needle or the exhale of seaweed rising and falling with the tide. You carry within you the breath of places you have never seen. This exchange is intimate, but it is also vast. Your body holds about 30 trillion cells, each one needing oxygen. Plants provide it freely, tirelessly, without pause. At the same time, you provide carbon dioxide, which they in turn use to create more life. It is a circle, not a one-way gift, a mutual offering. Perhaps you remember standing in a dense forest, feeling the air cool and fresh. The sensation was not only in your imagination. Plants shape the very texture of the air. They increase humidity, soften temperature, and release not just oxygen, but also subtle compounds, scents that soothe, signals that heal. The sharp fragrance of pine, the calming aroma of lavender, the sweet whisper of jasmine, all of these are part of the invisible breath of green. Close your eyes now and imagine being inside a giant lung, soft and living. That is what a forest is. Every branch, every leaf, every moss-covered stone contributes to this great organ of the earth, and you, as you breathe, are inside it, not separate from it. Science tells us that half of the oxygen you inhale does not come from forests at all, but from the ocean. Microscopic algae floating in endless waves release oxygen into the atmosphere. They are unseen but no less generous. In fact, every other breath you take, every second inhalation, may well be a gift from the sea. Plants, whether on land or in water, weave the very fabric of your survival. Consider this: the breath you take right now may once have been inside another person years ago on another continent. It may have been carried by winds, transformed by trees, released again into the open air. The molecules of oxygen within you tonight may have once filled the lungs of animals, may have circled through the bodies of countless beings, may have touched the feathers of birds or the fins of whales. You are sharing a breath with all of life. And yet the plants do this without fanfare, without demand. They do not ask you to notice, but when you do, it changes the way you see them. The house plant on your desk is not decoration, it is part of your body's rhythm. The tree shading your street is not silent, it is whispering air into your chest. In this way, plants are less like background scenery and more like partners in existence. Without them, the sky would thin, your breath would falter, and life as you know it would vanish. With them, you are sustained, nourished, embraced in a web of exchange as old as time. There is a strange comfort in this. Your breath, fragile and personal, is woven into something vast and enduring. Even as you sleep, the trees outside continue their work. Even as you dream, algae drift in the sea, releasing oxygen for the dawn. You rest, but the green world never stops. Breathe again. Feel how your body softens, knowing you are not alone in this rhythm. The plants breathe with you. They do not need recognition, but they are there, steady as stars, quiet as tides. And as you sink deeper into this awareness, you might wonder, if the breath of plants sustains you, what sustains them? If oxygen is your gift, what other gifts do they exchange, hidden in the soil beneath the ground? For the story of plants does not end with leaves and air. It continues below in the unseen world of roots, and as you follow the breath back into the soil, you begin to sense another secret life waiting to be uncovered. Roots beneath the earth. In the dark soil, invisible fingers reach deep and wide. Roots drink water, whisper minerals, and share silent signals. The earth is alive with hidden conversations below your feet. You begin to see the forest as one vast underground web. You walk across the earth, your feet pressing into soil, your steps quiet against the ground. Above, the air is filled with branches, leaves, and light. But beneath you, hidden from your eyes, lies another world, a world no less alive than the one you see. Roots spread through this underground darkness like rivers of life. They reach downward, 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 seeking water. They reach sideways, searching for space, for food, for connection. To look at a root is to see persistence embodied, soft tissue pressing into hard earth, finding cracks in stone, slipping into hidden reservoirs. Imagine the roots of a great oak tree. What you see above, the trunk, the branches, the crown stretching toward the sky, is mirrored below. As vast as the tree is in height, so too is its width beneath the ground. Its roots spread like an invisible mirror image, anchoring it against wind, holding it steady in storm. Roots are more than anchors, though. They are seekers, feeders, and quiet messengers. Through them, water flows upward, drawn against gravity by capillary action and by the pull of the leaves above. Minerals dissolved from stone and soil ride this river, carried to where the plant needs the most. Calcium, potassium, nitrogen, all the elements of growth are gathered here, one particle at a time. You may think of soil as dirt, but it is more than that. Soil is alive. A handful of earth holds billions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, tiny unseen lives. Roots interact with these lives constantly, forming bonds, trading gifts. In the darkness, a root is never truly alone. Consider mycorrhizal fungi. Their filaments are thinner than threads, weaving through the soil like lace. They touch root tips, fusing into them, creating a partnership. The plant provides sugar, food born from sunlight. The fungus provides phosphorus, nitrogen, and water drawn from far away. Together they form what scientists call the wood wide web. Through this fungal network, signals travel. One tree warns another of drought. A sapling in shadow receives nutrients from an elder tree. Messages of distress, of hunger, of attack move invisibly through these filaments, faster than you would expect in such silence. The forest, you learn, is not just a collection of individuals, but a community woven together underground. Pause and imagine walking in a forest again. You see trees, separate trunks rising skyward. But below, their roots are intertwined, their fungi entangled, their signals shared. It is as though the ground itself is alive with whispers. You are walking not on soil, but on the skin of a living body. Roots do not simply take, they also give. They release exudates, droplets of sugar and amino acids into the soil. These feed microbes, which in turn create healthier soil, more nutrients, more fertility. What appears to be generosity is also survival. Plants know that by feeding their soil, they feed themselves. The structure of roots tells a story too. Some plants send down a taproot, a single deep spear that pierces the ground, reaching far below. Carrots, beets, dandelions all follow this path. Others spread fibrous roots in a web, shallow but wide, covering vast areas. Grasses follow this pattern, holding the soil together like a woven mat. In deserts, roots can travel astonishing distances, finding the faintest traces of water in hidden places. You might think of roots as still, but they move constantly. New tips push outward every day, guided by subtle senses. Roots feel gravity, a process called gravitropism, always turning downward. They sense moisture, hydrotropism, bending toward wetter soil. Some even sense nearby roots and avoid or embrace them depending on their kinship. Scientists have found that roots can distinguish between their own species and strangers. They know in some way who belongs beside them. And here is another secret. Roots breathe too. Not like leaves, but through tiny pores, exchanging gases with the soil. Roots like you require oxygen. Without it, they suffocate. This is why waterlogged soil can kill a plant, drowning its unseen parts even while the leaves remain in the air. Life below is delicate, as dependent on balance as life above. Think of the mangrove trees along tropical coasts. Their roots grow upward as well as downward, forming strange aerial structures that poke out of the mud. These breathing roots, pneumatophores, allow oxygen to reach parts buried in salt and water. Adaptation, resilience, ingenuity, all hidden in wood and tissue beneath the ground. Roots also store memory. The starches they collect become reserves, fuel for winters or dry seasons, insurance against scarcity. A tree may stand bare in winter, but its roots hold energy, waiting patiently for spring. Underground survival is always being prepared. When you eat a root, you taste this storage. A potato, a carrot, a radish, all are vessels of the plant's preparation, food gathered and hidden, food that also becomes your nourishment. The bond between human and plant deepens here. What sustains the root sustains you. Beneath cities, roots adapt in new ways. Sidewalks crack, foundations shift as roots search stubbornly for space. In drought, roots grow longer. In flood, roots grow shallow. Always they respond. They are not passive but dynamic, alive to the changing world. Sometimes roots outlive the visible plant. In forests of aspen, for example, the trees you see may be only shoots of a single underground organism. Entire groves are connected to one root system, thousands of years old. Above-ground trees may die, but the roots endure, sending up new life, generation after generation. And yet, roots are hidden. We rarely see them unless we pull a plant from the soil, and even then, the deeper truth remains unseen. They are secretive, working quietly, sustaining without display. There is something humbling in this. So much of life is carried by what is unseen, by roots, by connections, by exchanges that happen silently. You walk above it, often unaware, but it carries you nonetheless. Close your eyes and imagine sinking downward as though your own body grew roots. Imagine touching the soil, absorbing its moisture, its minerals, its hidden strength. Imagine being connected to every other rooted being around you. You would feel less alone, for below, everything is woven together. Roots teach this lesson. Connection does not need to be visible to be real. Community does not need noise to be strong. What is hidden can be the foundation of everything you see. And so you breathe again, softly, realizing that your air comes from leaves above, and your stability comes from roots below. The plant is both sky and soil, both light and darkness, both presence and hiddenness. To see only half is to miss the whole. Now, as you rest, you carry the image of roots inside you, quiet, steady, reaching deep, holding, nourishing, connecting. They remind you that unseen work, though hidden, may be the most vital of all. And just as roots connect plants beneath the soil, so too do trees above share messages in silence. What seems still may in truth be speaking, not with words, but with a quiet language of their own. The quiet language of trees. A forest speaks without sound, through scents, hormones, and chemicals. One tree sends out distress, and another responds in kind. You realize that silence is not emptiness, but a different kind of song. The woods become a cathedral of invisible voices. You walk into a forest and hear nothing but the rustle of leaves, the soft crunch of soil beneath your feet, and perhaps the song of a bird carried on the wind. To human ears, this place is quiet, but quiet does not mean silence. Beneath what you cannot hear, the trees are speaking, not with words, not with sound, but with chemistry, with invisible messages carried in air, in sap, in soil. They do not shout, but they communicate. They always have. Imagine a caterpillar beginning to chew on the edge of a leaf. The tree feels the wound. Within moments, the leaf releases chemicals, volatile compounds that drift into the air. These molecules are signals, warnings, distress calls. Nearby leaves, even on the same tree, respond by changing their chemistry, making themselves less palatable, less vulnerable. Other trees downwind catch the scent and prepare themselves as well. This is one kind of language, a warning carried not by sound but by air. It is a whisper in molecules, a sentence invisible but clear. To us it would pass unnoticed, but to trees it is urgent communication. You may wonder how a tree can feel such damage. Plants do not have nerves, but they do have signaling systems that mimic aspects of our own. Electrical impulses travel through their tissues, slower than those in animal nerves, but still present. Calcium ions shift, hormones move, and within minutes messages spread from leaf to leaf, from branch to branch. Consider acacia trees on the African savanna. When giraffes begin to browse their leaves, the trees respond swiftly. They release tannins into their foliage, making them bitter and harder to digest. At the same time, they emit ethylene gas into the air. Neighboring acacias detect this signal and begin producing tannins before the giraffes even reach them. What seems to you like silence is, to the trees, a call and response of defense. This invisible language extends beyond warning. Some plants attract allies. When a caterpillar feeds, the damaged plant may release chemicals that attract parasitic wasps. These wasps arrive, laying eggs inside the caterpillars, reducing their threat. The tree, in a sense, calls for help. Its language summons guardians. Pause here and breathe in. The forest air that fills your lungs is not only oxygen, it is also infused with chemical messages, subtle perfumes, silent words exchanged among leaves. You are, without knowing it, inhaling the language of trees. But the forest's communication is not only in air, much of it happens underground, through the roots and the fungal networks you glimpsed before. The mycorrhizal fungi woven into roots act as couriers. A tree shaded and starving may receive sugars from a neighbor connected through this web. A seedling struggling in the darkness may be fed by older trees. Scientists have found that even dying trees may release their remaining carbon through the network, passing it into the roots of others. A final message of generosity, a last contribution to the forest's survival. This underground language is subtle but powerful. When insects attack one tree, signals travel through the fungal network to warn others nearby. When drought begins to dry the soil, roots exchange information that helps the forest conserve water. You may see only stillness, but beneath there is conversation, a flow of resources, of warnings, of life. What does this mean for you, walking among them? Perhaps that the forest is not silent but symphonic. Not every voice is heard in your range, but they are there, layered, constant. The scent of pine, the rise of humidity, the soil's texture, all a part of this ongoing dialogue. Scientists debate how to frame these exchanges. Some resist the idea of communication, preferring the language of chemistry and physiology. Others embrace the metaphor, seeing in these exchanges something that mirrors social networks in animals, even in humans. Whatever words we use, the truth remains. Trees interact, trees respond, trees adapt together. You might picture each tree as a solitary being standing alone, but to see them clearly you must imagine instead a network. Each trunk is a node, each root a line, each chemical message a pulse of meaning. The forest is not an assembly of individuals, it is a living community, a web woven by constant signals. And so, when you sit among the trees, you are not sitting in silence. You are sitting in the midst of an invisible conversation, one that has gone on for millions of years, one that will continue long after your listening ends. Perhaps you can imagine yourself tuned in just for a moment. Imagine if your ears could hear the molecules moving, the signals pulsing, the sugars flowing from root to root. Imagine the forest as a cathedral, its music inaudible but constant, its language woven into the air. Even the rhythm of the seasons is part of this communication. As days shorten, trees sense the change in light, and signals flow that tell leaves to prepare for fall. Chlorophyll fades, colors brighten, and nutrients are withdrawn into the trunk and roots. This too is language, the body telling itself when to rest, when to conserve, when to endure. In winter the forest may appear asleep, but even then quiet messages pass. Hormones shift, water content changes, buds are primed for the return of light. The silence is not death but waiting, not emptiness but preparation. You breathe slowly and begin to sense that communication is not always loud. Sometimes it is patient, sometimes it is invisible, sometimes it is written in air, in soil, in the shifting chemistry of life. And what of you? Your body too speaks in hidden languages. Hormones travel in your blood, neurotransmitters leap across synapses, electrical pulses dance along your nerves. Your cells, like trees, send messages constantly, unseen but essential. Perhaps this is why you can sense a kinship here. Your body is also a forest of communication, a quiet language sustaining you moment by moment. So the next time you walk in the woods, you may feel less like an outsider and more like a participant. You too are a signal. Your breath exhaled as carbon dioxide, your footsteps pressing information into the soil. You are part of this quiet language, whether you notice it or not. The forest does not demand your awareness, but when you offer it, something shifts. Silence becomes sound, stillness becomes speech. And you realize that to listen to trees is not to strain for words, but to soften, to slow, to let the quiet fill you. And if the forest speaks through signals, then what of sunlight? The light itself seems to carry messages, falling through leaves, shaping every life it touches. Perhaps the language of trees is only part of a larger symphony, the symphony of sunlight. The symphony of sunlight. Light falls like a liquid caught in pigments of green. You follow photons as they are turned into sugar, into life. Chlorophyll becomes a poet of energy, translating the sun's song. The air around you feels charged with unseen music. You wake beneath a canopy of trees, and the first thing you notice is the light. It falls gently, not in silence, but with the hush of a symphony. Each beam feels alive, as though it carries meaning. It is not only brightness, it is energy, a message written in gold. Sunlight travels far to reach you. Born in the fiery heart of the sun, photons take thousands of years to emerge from the dense core, bouncing endlessly before escaping outward. When at last they break free, they cross the empty stretch of space in only 8 minutes. They fall to earth, touch your skin, your eyes, the surface of leaves. To you, light is warmth, sight, the rhythm of day. To plants, light is more than this. It is food, it is breath, it is song. Close your eyes and imagine sunlight as a river of notes, flowing endlessly from the sun to earth. Each photon is a single tone. When it strikes a leaf, it enters a grand orchestra of transformation. Here in the green pigment called chlorophyll, the note is caught, absorbed, and woven into a melody of life. Chlorophyll is not simply a pigment, it is a translator. It catches light of particular wavelengths, red and blue, while reflecting green back to your eyes. This is why leaves shimmer with their emerald hue. To the plant, though, green is not reflection, but language. Red and blue photons are transformed, their energy captured, stored, turned into sugars. This is photosynthesis. But the word is too small for what it contains. You may think of it as chemistry, as equations written in textbooks. But here in the forest it feels like something more, the very conversion of sunlight into flesh, into wood, into seed. The sun itself becomes edible. Imagine the process unfolding inside the leaf. Photons strike molecules of chlorophyll, knocking electrons into motion. These electrons move through proteins like dancers in a line, passing energy step by step. This movement powers the splitting of water molecules, releasing oxygen into the air. At the same time, carbon dioxide is drawn from the atmosphere, stitched into sugar molecules. Pause here. The air you breathe out, the carbon dioxide you release, enters this cycle. The leaf uses it, transforms it, and in return gives you oxygen. It is a duet, your breath and the leaf's song intertwined. This process is constant, patient, eternal in its rhythm. With every sunrise, photosynthesis begins anew. With every sunset, the orchestra rests, waiting for dawn's return. You may not notice it, but you live inside this song. Every bite of food you eat is sunlight made tangible. The wheat in bread, the fruit in your hand, the vegetables on your plate, all are the result of chlorophyll translating light into matter. Even meat carries this origin, for the animals you eat are nourished by plants, by grasses, by seeds filled with sun. In truth, everything you consume is sunlight, transformed and stored. There is something humbling in this realization. You are, in a very real way, a body of light, rearranged into bone, muscle, thought, and memory. Every cell in you carries atoms that once were touched by sunlight. You are not separate from the sun's gift. You are one of its expressions. Think of the variations in this symphony. In the rainforest, light filters down in shafts broken by countless layers of leaves. Plants in shadow grow broader leaves, reaching for more photons, adjusting their instruments to catch faint notes. In deserts, light is harsh, unbroken, and plants adapt by storing water, protecting themselves with spines or waxy skins, conserving every drop of what photosynthesis requires. Each plant is a musician tuned to its environment, playing its part in the larger symphony of survival. Even underwater, the song continues. Algae drift in oceans, catching light in their tiny bodies. Coral reefs glow because of the photosynthetic algae living inside corals, feeding them sugar in exchange for shelter. In lakes, in rivers, in shallow seas, sunlight fuels life just as it does on land. Half of the oxygen you breathe comes from these invisible oceanic players, their green pigments humming silently beneath the waves. Pause again. Imagine sunlight not only as brightness, but as time. Plants use light to tell when to open, when to close, when to bloom, when to rest. Photoperiodism, the sense of day length, governs their cycles. Sunlight tells a flower when spring has come, tells a tree when to let go of its leaves. Light is not only nourishment, it is a calendar. It guides life's rhythms, turning each day into a note in a much larger song. Your body, too, listens to light. The rising sun wakes your circadian rhythm, telling your hormones when to rise, when to rest. Without light, your sense of time blurs. You and the plants are not so different. Both of you live by the cues of sunlight. Both of you listen for its song. If you sit in a forest and watch, you can almost see this symphony. Leaves tremble slightly, positioning themselves to catch more light. Sunflowers tilt and follow the arc of the sun across the sky. This movement is not frantic but slow, a choreography of devotion to light. It is heliotropism, the turning toward the sun. In that turning you might recognize yourself. You also lean toward what warms you, what nourishes you, what gives you energy. The plant's gesture is your own gesture expressed in green. Light also creates beauty. The green of leaves, the red of apples, the violet of petals, all are shaped by pigments that absorb and reflect particular wavelengths. The colors of the world are the byproduct of plants speaking with light. To an insect, those colors are not decoration but signal, guiding them to nectar, to pollen, to partnership. To you, they are beauty, reminding you that survival can also be art. Sunlight is ancient, but it is also immediate. The photons falling on your skin right now left the sun only minutes ago. And yet their origin stretches back thousands of years, deep within the sun's furnace. To touch light is to touch both immediacy and eternity. And when the light fades, as it does each evening, plants rest. Without photons, photosynthesis pauses. Leaves breathe differently, exchanging gases in the dark, conserving energy, waiting. The forest grows quiet, not only to your ears, but in its chemistry. The symphony rests, but it does not end. Dawn will awaken it again. You too live by this rhythm. You wake with light, you rest with darkness. Perhaps this is why the forest feels so calming. It reminds you of your own alignment with the day. It brings you back into a rhythm larger than your own. Breathe once more softly. Feel the sunlight within you, in your breath, in your heartbeat, in the food that has nourished you today. Feel the kinship between yourself and the leaves above. You are both musicians in the same symphony, players in the same orchestra of light. But if sunlight guides the song of life, then time itself is the rhythm it plays to. Plants know time in ways both subtle and profound, opening and closing with the hours, changing with the seasons. Perhaps it is time now to listen to the garden's quiet clocks. Time in the garden, plants keep clocks, though they never wear watches. Petals open and close to rhythms written in light and darkness. Seasons guide their hidden calendars, each leaf a ticking hand. You feel time slow down, steady as a sunflower's turning. Time passes differently in a garden. You may measure it in hours, in minutes, in the ticking of a clock on the wall. But plants have no need of such devices. They live by a deeper rhythm, one written in the language of light and darkness, of warmth and coolness, of sun and season. Sit quietly and observe, and you begin to notice. Flowers that open with the morning close again at dusk. Leaves tilt during the day, following the sun, then return to rest at night. Entire gardens shift with the seasons, each change gentle yet precise. It is as though plants carry their own clocks, hidden inside their cells. Science calls this the circadian rhythm, from the Latin circadium, about a day. Just as your body carries an internal clock that guides when you wake and sleep, so too do plants. Their circadian rhythms run on roughly 24-hour cycles, tuned by the rising and setting of the sun. Inside every plant cell are molecules that track time. Proteins rise and fall in regular waves, like tides within the cell. These oscillations control when genes switch on and off, when flowers bloom, When stomata, the tiny pores in leaves, open to breathe. Even in darkness, this rhythm continues, steady and reliable, until light cues adjust it again. Think of the sunflower. You may have seen a field of them, their golden heads all turned in the same direction, facing the dawn. Through the day they follow the sun's arc, turning slowly, always facing the light. This movement is not random but guided by their internal clocks. As night falls, they reset, returning eastward, ready to greet the next sunrise. Time for them is a circle of devotion. Other plants keep their own schedules. Morning glories unfurl as daylight arrives, closing tightly by afternoon. Evening primroses open their blossoms only as twilight deepens, offering fragrance and nectar to moths that fly in the dark. In each case, the plant is not reacting blindly to light. It is anticipating it. Their clocks prepare them for what is about to come, not just what has already arrived. This anticipation matters. Opening petals just as pollinators arrive increases the chance of survival. Closing stomata before the heat of midday prevents water loss. Timing for a plant is as crucial as nourishment. Their survival depends not just on what they do, but on when they do it. And the rhythm is larger than a single day. Across months, plants sense the length of daylight, a phenomenon called photoperiodism. Some flowers bloom only when days grow long, signaling summer. Others bloom when days shorten, preparing for autumn. Wheat, rice, soybeans, chrysanthemums, each has its own response, its own calendar written in light. These hidden calendars shape entire landscapes. In spring, buds swell and trees blossom, responding to the growing length of daylight. In autumn, leaves sense the shortening days, withdrawing nutrients, changing color, preparing to fall. Seasons are not accidents, they are responses to the shifting clock of light. Pause now and think of how your own body mirrors this. You too live by circadian rhythms. Your brain responds to light through the hormone melatonin, guiding your sleep and wake cycles. Without light, you lose track of time. In caves, in darkness, humans drift out of rhythm, sleeping and waking at odd intervals. Plants too lose balance without their cues. Both you and the garden rely on the sun to keep time, and yet the garden also knows patience. Some seeds rest for years, waiting for the right season, the right rainfall, the right length of day. This patience is its own kind of timekeeping, a memory stored in dormancy. When conditions arrive, the seed awakens, as if it always knew when to rise. Consider the bristlecone pine, living for thousands of years in high mountains. To you, centuries are vast. To the tree, they are lived in rings, one after another, each marking a year. Trees keep time in wood, recording droughts and floods, fire and frost. A trunk is not just a body, but a clock written in circles. The more you look, the more you realize gardens do not merely exist in time, they embody it. Each petal opening, each leaf falling, each seed sprouting is a hand on the clock. You cannot rush them. They move in their own rhythm, unhurried, unforced. To sit in a garden is to feel time slow, to feel it stretch, to feel it align with something older than watches and calendars. And perhaps this is what the garden teaches, that time is not only measured in minutes, but in cycles. Day and night, growth and rest, blooming and fading, life and decay. The garden does not resist time, it flows with it. Its beauty is inseparable from its impermanence. As you rest, imagine yourself moving with this rhythm. Your breath like the opening and closing of petals, your days like the turning of sunflowers, your years like the rings of a tree. You are not outside of this rhythm, you are part of it. And if plants carry time within them, then so too do seeds, tiny vessels holding not only potential, but memory. Within each seed lies an entire forest, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The memory of seeds. A seed is a library, storing blueprints for forests yet unborn. Within its tiny shell sleeps both fragility and power. You imagine centuries of life folded into a grain of dust. The seed reminds you that beginnings are always small, always sacred. Hold a seed in your hand. It looks so small, so unassuming. A speck you could overlook on the ground, a fragment lighter than a breath. Yet inside it rests something profound. The memory of entire landscapes, the possibility of forests, the future of food, shelter, medicine, and air. A seed is not simply a beginning. It is a continuation. It is the way plants remember the past and project themselves into the future. Hidden inside is a story written in DNA, a script passed down through generations. Every leaf shape, every blossom color, every fragrance and fruit is encoded within, waiting for the right moment to unfold. Seeds carry not only genetic instructions but also energy. Starches, oils, and proteins are packed tightly, food for the first days of growth. When a seed germinates, it does so on this reserve. Before it makes its first leaf, before it draws its first sunlight, it survives on what was stored within. In this way, a seed is both memory and preparation, the past nurturing the future. Imagine an acorn falling from an oak, hard, glossy, simple. Yet within it lies the entire blueprint of a towering tree, one that may live for centuries, spreading branches across fields, sheltering animals, anchoring soil. The oak exists within the acorn in potential, waiting only for the right conditions to awaken. Not all seeds wake immediately. Many wait. Some require cold, the touch of winter before they stir. Others need fire, their shells cracked open by the heat of flames, awakened by destruction. Some seeds can lie dormant for decades, even centuries, biding their time. They are patient beyond human measure, carrying within them the ability to restart life when the world is ready. Think of the lotus seeds discovered in a dry lake bed in China. More than 1,000 years old, they were planted, watered, and sprouted again, their green shoots rising as if no time had passed. Or the date palm seed found in ancient ruins near the Dead Sea, dormant for 2,000 years. When placed in soil, it awoke, stretching toward light as though remembering a promise made long ago. These stories remind you, a seed is not only fragile, it is resilient. Small though it may be, it carries endurance beyond imagination. Within it lies the persistence of life, folded neatly, protected by layers of shell and husk. Seeds are also travelers. They ride the wind, drift across oceans, cling to fur, hitch rides in feathers. They move silently, spreading their species across continents. A dandelion puff carries hundreds of seeds on parachutes of silk, floating wherever the breeze may take them. Coconut seeds cross seas, their shells buoyant, their interiors nourished for long journeys, settling on distant shores. In every case, the seed is both vessel and voyager, carrying memory into new lands. You might think of seeds as belonging only to plants, but in truth, they belong to you as well. Humanity's survival has always depended on them. Wheat, rice, corn, beans, all are seeds. They are the basis of agriculture, of civilization itself. Entire cultures rose and fell depending on harvests, on whether seeds thrived or failed. Even now, seeds are treasures guarded carefully. Across the world, seed banks preserve them in vaults, collections of life's potential stored against future disaster. In Svalbard, deep within the Arctic permafrost, millions of seeds are kept safe, an insurance policy for the planet. Should fields fail, should climates shift, these frozen memories may bring food back again. Seeds are not only about survival, they are about beauty and mystery. From the smallest orchid seed, like a speck of dust invisible to the eye, to the largest coconut, they vary endlessly. Each one is a different package, a different strategy, shaped by evolution to suit its environment. Some are sticky, some spiny, some winged, some armored. Each carries not only life, but a clever way of ensuring it reaches the right place to grow. Pause now and imagine the moment of germination. The seed swells with water, its coat softening, breaking open. A tiny rootlet emerges, reaching downward, anchoring into soil. Soon after, a shoot rises upward, seeking light. This moment, quiet and unseen beneath the ground, is the most delicate of all. A transformation from memory to motion, from silence to song. And yet, this transformation is ordinary, happening every day around you. Grains sprouting in fields, weeds pushing through cracks in sidewalks, wildflowers waking in meadows, all are seeds fulfilling their hidden promise. Each one is a miracle disguised as routine. What is remarkable is how seeds balance fragility with strength. A single seed can be crushed underfoot, destroyed in an instant. And yet, given the right soil, the right rain, it can split stone, break pavement, and rise as a tree that outlives generations. Their power is not in force, but in persistence, in waiting for the right moment, in unfolding with patience. Think too of how seeds resemble your own life. Inside you are memories, stories, possibilities, waiting for the right conditions to awaken. At times you may feel small, fragile, insignificant. But like the seed, you carry within you the blueprint of resilience, of growth, of transformation. You are also a vessel of memory and potential. Seeds remind us that beginnings do not need grandeur. They begin hidden, buried, unseen. Growth often starts in darkness, nourished quietly until the moment comes to rise. There is comfort in this. Your own beginnings, however small, may hold forests of possibility. As you sit with this thought, you may notice how seeds mark time in their own way. Some germinate quickly, within days. Others bide their time, awakening after years. To watch them is to learn that life does not move at one speed. Growth is not always immediate. Patience, too, is part of living. And so the seed becomes a teacher. It teaches you about endurance, about timing, about trust in what is hidden. It reminds you that every ending carries a beginning, folded tightly, waiting to be revealed. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine yourself as a seed, small, quiet, resting in darkness. Inside you, memory and potential are stored. Outside, the world may be uncertain, the soil shifting, the air changing. But within you something ancient waits, steady and sure. In time you will rise, and as seeds awaken, they do not grow alone. Their blossoms invite companions, bees, moths, birds, into a dance of color and fragrance. In the next chapter, the secret bargains of flowers unfold. Flowers and their secret deals. Colors bloom not for you, but for bees, moths, and birds. Every petal is an invitation, every fragrance a hidden bargain. Pollination is less romance and more an ancient contract of survival. The garden glows with partnerships older than human history. A flower opens, and at first glance it feels like beauty for beauty's sake. Soft petals, vivid colors, delicate forms. To your eyes, a blossom is decoration, a fleeting expression of grace. But to the plant it is something far more serious, a negotiation, a signal, a deal struck with the world beyond itself. Flowers exist to make connections. They are the messengers of reproduction, carrying a plant's future in their pollen. But pollen must travel, and plants cannot walk. They must rely on others to carry their precious grains from one blossom to another. And so flowers evolved strategies, colors, scents, shapes, to entice partners into this exchange. Think of a bee. It hovers near a blossom, drawn by ultraviolet patterns invisible to your eyes, but clear as a map to the insect. These patterns guide it to the center, where nectar lies hidden. The bee drinks, its body dusted with pollen. When it leaves for another flower, it carries that pollen with it, unknowingly completing the plant's bargain. Food for the bee, fertilization for the plant. This is the secret deal of flowers. They offer sweetness, but only enough to lure. Nectar is costly for a plant to produce. It requires energy, sugars made from sunlight. And so the plant is strategic. It rewards visitors, but never too much, ensuring they keep searching, keep carrying, keep spreading its pollen to others. Pause and notice how this feels less like romance and more like commerce. The flower is a shop, its nectar the price, its pollen the product to be delivered. The bee is both customer and courier. Survival depends on the balance of this trade, and bees are not the only partners. Hummingbirds with their hovering wings are drawn to trumpet-shaped flowers glowing red. Moths arrive at night, guided not by color but by fragrance, seeking blossoms that release perfume after dusk. Flies, beetles, bats, each has its flower, each has its deal. Orchids, among the most intricate negotiators, sometimes mimic the shapes of female insects, tricking males into attempting to mate, thereby carrying pollen without reward. Not every deal is honest, some are deception disguised as invitation. In this way, flowers are both artists and strategists. Their colors are not painted for your eyes but tailored to the senses of their pollinators. To a bee, a sunflower glows with ultraviolet rings. To a hummingbird, bright red shines more vividly than any other hue. To a moth in the dark, the invisible plume of fragrance is irresistible. Each blossom speaks in the language of its chosen partner. The garden, then, is not simply a gallery of beauty. It is a marketplace of exchanges, each transaction older than human history. Long before people admired roses or lilies, these deals were being struck between petals and wings, between nectar and pollen. The world you see as ornamental is in truth an economy of survival. Consider the timing of these deals. A flower does not bloom at random. It opens when pollinators are active, when conditions are right. Some open at dawn, greeting bees that rise with the sun. Others bloom at night, aligning with nocturnal visitors. This timing is precise, another part of the contract. If the flower opens too soon or too late, it risks failure. Time, color, fragrance, shape, all must align. Pause again and think. Without these exchanges, the world you know would collapse. Most of the food you eat depends on pollination. Apples, almonds, berries, cucumbers, pumpkins all require the transfer of pollen. Without bees, without hummingbirds, without bats, these plants would not bear fruit. Your survival is tied to the secret deals of flowers. And yet the flowers do not make these bargains for you. Their partners are the insects and animals that carry their pollen. You are only a bystander, benefiting from the outcomes. When you bite into an apple, you taste not just sweetness but the result of countless tiny negotiations between blossom and bee. Flowers also remind you that beauty is often functional. The colors that delight your eyes are signals, not decorations. The fragrances that calm or intoxicate you are chemical messages meant for other species. You are fortunate to witness them, but you are not the intended audience. Beauty here is communication, a visual and olfactory language of survival. This realization can change how you see a garden. Instead of a collection of pretty objects, you begin to see strategies, messages, hidden contracts. Every blossom is speaking, every color a sign, every scent a sentence. To you it may seem silent, but to bees and birds it is alive with meaning. There is also a lesson in generosity. Flowers give nectar freely, though always with purpose. They remind you that exchange can be mutual, that giving and receiving are intertwined. Even deception in flowers has its balance. A tricked insect may lose time, but still spreads pollen, still participates in the cycle. The system endures, even when honesty is not guaranteed. Think of the orchid again, some species producing blossoms that resemble the exact shape and scent of a female bee. A male arrives attempting to mate, fooled by illusion. He leaves with pollen stuck to his body, carries it to another flower, and repeats the act. The plant gains fertilization, the bee gains nothing, yet the cycle continues. Even trickery can sustain life. You might see yourself in this. Your own life is filled with exchanges, some mutual, some unequal. You give, you receive, sometimes you are deceived. And yet life continues, nourished by the rhythm of giving and taking, of offering and accepting. As you rest, picture a field of blossoms, each one open, each one bargaining silently with the world. Bees drift from flower to flower, hummingbirds flash between trumpets of red, moths hover in twilight, all participating in the ancient market of survival. What looks like beauty is also commerce. What feels like stillness is also constant negotiation. The deals of flowers are not loud or visible, but they shape the world. They fill your plate, sweeten your air, color your landscapes. You owe your breath, your food, your comfort in part to these silent exchanges. And perhaps in recognizing this, you learn to see beauty not only as decoration, but as strategy, not only as pleasure, but as survival. And yet for all their motion with bees and birds, plants themselves seem rooted still. But are they truly motionless? In truth, they move in ways so slow, so subtle, you may only notice if you learn to see differently. Plants in motion. Though rooted, plants are not still. They sway, turn, and reach. Tendrils climb, leaves fold, flowers track the sun with patience. You notice motion slowed, like time-lapse whispers of persistence. Their stillness hides an elegance of quiet choreography. At first glance, a plant appears motionless. A tree stands rooted, branches unmoving, leaves seemingly fixed. Compared to animals, plants seem bound to stillness, but stillness can deceive. Plants do move, slowly, subtly, rhythmically, in ways you may not notice unless you learn to look with patience. Imagine watching a garden through the lens of time-lapse, hours condensed into seconds. Suddenly, what seemed frozen begins to flow. Sunflowers tilt their heads from east to west, following the sun's arc. Vines spiral upward, wrapping around poles or branches. Leaves fold at night and reopen with dawn. Flowers bloom in bursts of color, petals unfurling as though breathing. The garden becomes a quiet dance. This movement, though slow, is life in action. Scientists call it tropism, directional growth in response to stimuli. There are many kinds. Phototropism, stems and leaves bending toward light. Gravitropism, roots growing downward, stems growing upward, guided by gravity. Hydrotropism, roots turning toward water hidden in soil. Thigmotropism, vines coiling around supports guided by touch. Each form of motion is the plant responding, adjusting, surviving. Pause and picture a vine. Its tendrils wave in the air, searching. When they brush against something solid, a branch, a wall, even a neighboring plant, they begin to curl, tightening around it. This is thigmotropism in action. The vine climbs not by force but by touch, sensing its way upward. What looks passive is in truth active exploration. Other plants fold or droop when touched. The mimosa, also called the sensitive plant, closes its leaflets instantly at the slightest brush. This rapid movement is powered not by muscles, but by changes in water pressure inside cells, causing leaves to fold in defense. Though it lacks nerves, the plant responds swiftly, almost as if recoiling. There are even carnivorous plants, whose movements are more dramatic. The Venus flytrap snaps shut when an insect brushes its trigger hairs, trapping its prey. The sundew curls its sticky tentacles around struggling insects, slowly engulfing them. These are reminders that plant motion can be both delicate and decisive, a choreography of survival. Yet not all plant movements are visible moment by moment. Some are seasonal, measured in days and months. Deciduous trees, for instance, move by letting go. In autumn, they cut off nutrients to their leaves, forming an abscission layer. Leaves change color, then fall, drifting like slow exhalations. This shedding is a kind of motion, a release, a letting go in rhythm with the year. Even seeds move, though they have no muscles. Dandelion seeds lift on parachutes of silk, drifting wherever the wind carries them. Maple seeds spin like tiny helicopters, spiraling to the ground. Some seeds burst explosively from pods, scattering away from the parent plant. Motion here is the way life expands its reach. Inside plants, movement is constant, though unseen. Water rises from roots to leaves through tiny vessels, pulled upward by evaporation. Sugars flow downward from leaves into roots and stems, feeding the body. Hormones travel cell to cell, guiding growth. These flows are silent rivers, ceaselessly moving within the green body. Even when a plant appears still, it is never truly motionless. Perhaps the most universal movement is the daily rhythm of nyctinasty, the opening and closing of flowers and leaves with the cycle of day and night. Morning glories unfurl with sunrise, then close by afternoon. Lotus flowers open to greet the sun, then fold with dusk. Legume leaves raise themselves during the day and droop at night, as though bowing in rest. Plants like you follow circadian rhythms, moving with the pulse of light and darkness. Pause now and reflect on this. You move quickly, rushing from place to place. Plants move slowly, measured not in steps but in growth. Yet your movements and theirs share purpose, seeking light, seeking nourishment, adapting to circumstance. Your pace is rapid, theirs is patient, but the dance is the same. There is beauty in this slowness. A tree does not hurry to reach the sky. It rises steadily year by year. A flower does not rush to bloom. It opens when conditions are right. In their motion, plants embody patience, persistence, and trust in timing. To watch them is to learn another rhythm, one that invites you to slow down, to notice. And when wind blows, when rain falls, plants sway. Their flexibility allows them to bend without breaking, to move with storms rather than resist. This too is motion, a resilience expressed through yielding. You may feel this lesson in your own life. Strength does not always mean rigidity. Sometimes it means bending, flowing, moving with the forces around you. Think also of the great migrations plants achieve without moving an inch themselves. Their seeds travel, their pollen drifts on wind or is carried by animals. Their reach expands far beyond their rooted place. They are still, and yet they spread. Perhaps then stillness and motion are not opposites but companions. A tree stands rooted yet is constantly in motion, in growth, in exchange, in cycles of shedding and renewal. You too may feel still at times, but within you blood flows, cells divide, thoughts shift, breath rises and falls. Motion is everywhere, even in stillness. As you rest, imagine watching a garden through time lapse again. You see the hidden choreography, stems stretching, buds opening, vines spiraling, flowers turning their faces to the sun. The garden is a dance floor, every plant a dancer, every motion part of a larger performance. It is a ballet too slow for daily eyes, but no less beautiful for its patience. Tonight, as you close your eyes, feel yourself part of this quiet choreography. Your breath rises and falls like the opening and closing of leaves. Your body shifts in rhythm with unseen flows. You too are part of the dance of motion, patient, persistent, and alive. And in this dance, plants offer more than beauty or movement. They offer medicine, nourishment, healing woven into their tissues. Their motion not only sustains themselves, but also sustains you. The healing green medicines rise from bark, leaves, and roots. Plants have shaped every cure you've known, from willow to quinine. The body remembers their chemistry as both food and remedy. You rest in gratitude for their unseen healing work. Sit quietly in a garden and you may notice how calm you feel. The scent of leaves, the whisper of branches, the simple presence of green seems to soften the edges of your mind. Long before science gave names to molecules, people sensed this healing power. Plants soothe, plants mend, plants hold medicines in their roots, leaves, bark, and flowers, waiting for you to discover them. From the beginning of human history, plants have been your companions in sickness and in health. Ancient shamans brewed teas from herbs, healers crushed leaves into poultices, physicians carried dried roots in their satchels. Every culture has known plants not only as food, but as remedy. The healing green was humanity's first pharmacy. Consider the willow tree. For centuries, people noticed that chewing its bark eased pain and lowered fever. What they did not know was that the bark contained salicin, a compound later refined into aspirin, one of the most widely used medicines in the world. A tree's chemistry became a cornerstone of modern medicine. Or think of the cinchona tree of South America. Its bark, when steeped into tea, cured fevers of malaria. Indigenous peoples used it long before Europeans arrived. Later, its active compound, quinine, became the first effective treatment for one of history's most devastating diseases. A forest tree helped humans endure tropical climates and expand across continents. Foxglove, with its tall spikes of purple flowers, holds another story. Once feared as poisonous, it yielded a compound called digitalis, which strengthens the beating of the human heart. From danger came remedy, from toxicity came healing. The poppy too tells a complex tale. Its milky sap contains alkaloids that relieve pain. Morphine, codeine, countless derivatives, all arose from this fragile flower. The same plant that offers comfort can also carry the risk of dependence, reminding you that healing is a balance, a careful measure between help and harm. Pause here and notice. These plants do not create medicines for you. They craft chemicals for their own purposes, to defend against predators, to ward off infection, to survive. Yet in their strategies, you find remedies. Their defenses become your cures. Their chemistry becomes your salvation. Even your daily foods are filled with subtle medicines. Garlic contains compounds that fight bacteria. Turmeric carries curcumin, easing inflammation. Ginger soothes nausea. Green tea, rich in antioxidants, protects cells from damage. The line between food and medicine is thin. What nourishes also heals. Science has confirmed what intuition long suggested. Being near plants, even without consuming them, brings health. Researchers speak of phytoncides, natural chemicals released by trees that reduce stress hormones in the human body. Walk in a forest, breathe deeply, and your pulse slows, your blood pressure lowers. The forest, in its quiet exhalation, offers calm. This is why so many traditions speak of gardens as places of restoration. From ancient monasteries with herb plots to modern hospitals with healing gardens, people have always turned to green spaces for comfort. The simple act of sitting among plants can be therapy. Their presence restores balance not only to the body, but to the spirit. Consider aloe vera. Break its leaf and cool gel flows out, soothing burns, calming skin. Or peppermint, whose oil relaxes muscles and clears breath. Or lavender, whose fragrance eases anxiety, preparing you for sleep. These are not exotic, distant plants. They are companions, often found on windowsills or in backyards, healing lives close at hand. Plants also teach humility. The most potent medicines often come from the most modest of sources. A flower in the meadow, a fungus in the soil, a leaf in the forest. Penicillin, though born of a mold rather than a plant, echoes the same truth. Life creates compounds that heal other life. You are part of this reciprocity, receiving what nature offers. The healing green also reminds you of interconnection. The chemicals that soothe you are part of larger cycles. Plants absorb light, water, and minerals, transforming them into molecules with complex structures. These molecules enter your body, altering its pathways, calming pain, restoring balance. The boundary between plant and human blurs, their chemistry becomes your biology. Pause again. Consider your breath, your heart, your skin. Each has, at some moment, been touched by a plant's medicine, a tea you drank, an herb you smelled, a balm you applied. The healing green lives within you already. Modern science continues to search among plants for new cures. Rainforests, with their astonishing diversity, may hold treatments for diseases not yet conquered. Researchers study bark, roots, leaves, hoping to unlock what evolution has crafted over millions of years. Each discovery is not invention, but recognition, acknowledgement of what plants already know. There is also healing in ritual. The act of brewing tea, of tending herbs, of sitting with a plant, carries comfort beyond chemistry. When you sip chamomile tea before bed, the warmth, the aroma, the quiet moment of pause is part of the medicine. Healing is not only in molecules, it is in the way you meet them, in the relationship between body and plant. Even the color green itself soothes. Studies suggest that looking at greenery reduces mental fatigue, restores focus, and lifts mood. Perhaps your eyes, evolved in landscapes of forests and fields, are calmed by this reminder of home. The green world is not only external, it resonates within your nervous system, your mind, your heart. And yet, like all gifts, healing plants can be lost. Deforestation erases species before they are known, before their remedies are discovered. The Amazon, rich in medicinal diversity, is vanishing. Each lost plant may be a lost cure, a healing that will never be found. The preservation of green places is also the preservation of potential, of medicines yet unborn. As you rest, imagine yourself lying in a meadow. Around you, grasses sway, flowers open, trees stand tall. Each one holds chemistry, some known, some hidden. Each one has the potential to soothe, to restore, to heal. You breathe their fragrance, you feel their presence, and your body softens. Healing is not separate from life. It is woven into it. Plants heal not only the body, but also the sense of belonging. They remind you that you are not alone in your struggles, that the earth offers comfort, that survival is shared. The healing green is not simply a collection of remedies. It is a reminder of kinship with the living world. And if plants heal the body, what do they teach the spirit? To see a forest not only as medicine, but as wisdom, a community of resilience, intelligence, and quiet cooperation. The wisdom of forests are not collections of trees, but living cities. Every trunk, root, and fungus forms part of a shared mind. You learn that resilience is written into community, not solitude. The forest becomes a mirror for your own hidden connections. Step into a forest and pause. At first you may see only trees, tall trunks rising into the air, branches spreading wide, leaves shifting gently with the breeze. But if you linger, if you let your gaze soften, another truth emerges. The forest is not a collection of individuals. It is a community, vast and interconnected. It is not a place of solitude, but of cooperation. A forest is a city without stone or steel. Each tree is a tower, each branch a balcony, each leaf a window. Beneath the soil, roots form avenues, fungi weave networks, water and minerals flow like traffic. Above, birds serve as messengers, insects as couriers, winds as carriers of pollen and seed. Life moves along countless pathways, creating a society older than your own. Science now reveals what intuition always whispered. Forests think in patterns of connection, not in the human sense of thought, with language and logic, but in the sharing of resources, in the exchange of signals, in the balancing of survival. The wisdom of forests is not in any single tree, but in the network between them. Consider the mother trees, the elders of the forest, large ancient trees with vast root systems connected to many others. Through their roots and fungal partners, they feed saplings shaded by their canopies, passing sugars to help them survive. They detect when young trees are kin, giving them preference in the flow of resources. These matriarchs act as anchors, not only holding soil but guiding the community around them. Pause and imagine this. A giant cedar, centuries old, sending nutrients into the roots of its offspring nearby. The young tree, too small to gather enough light, survives because its parent shares what it has gathered. In this gesture, you see the forest's wisdom. Strength is not hoarded but distributed. Survival is not solitary but communal. When danger arrives, the forest responds together. An insect outbreak begins on one tree, and chemical signals travel through roots and air. Neighboring trees alter their chemistry, becoming less palatable, strengthening their defenses. The forest is not passive in the face of threat. It is aware, adaptive, alive to what touches one of its members. Even death is part of this wisdom. A dying tree may pass its remaining carbon into the network, feeding others before it falls. Its trunk, once on the ground, becomes a nursery for seedlings, a home for mosses, a shelter for insects. Nothing is wasted. Death is not an end, but a redistribution, a transformation into new forms of life. Think of how different this is from the way you often imagine strength. As standing alone, independent, unyielding. The forest teaches otherwise. Strength here is interdependence. Resilience is written into relationships. To live well is to live connected. The wisdom of forests is also in diversity. A single species stand is fragile, vulnerable to disease and pests. A diverse forest with many kinds of trees, shrubs, fungi, and animals weathers storms with greater ease. Variety is its safeguard. Each species offers something different: shade, nitrogen, shelter, pollen, and together they create stability. The lesson is quiet but profound. Wholeness is built from difference, not sameness. As you walk deeper, you notice how every layer of the forest plays its part. The canopy captures sunlight. The understory thrives in shade. The forest floor teems with fungi and decomposers breaking down what has fallen. Energy moves downward, nutrients move upward, Nothing stands alone. Even the air you breathe is shaped by the collaboration of these layers, oxygen rising from countless leaves. Forests also carry memory. Within tree rings, years of drought and abundance are recorded. Within soil, spores and seeds wait for decades, ready to awaken when conditions return. The community remembers in wood and earth, in DNA and chemistry. The forest is not only alive now, it carries the history of seasons past and the blueprint for seasons to come. Pause and feel this continuity. When you stand in an old-growth forest, you are surrounded by centuries of memory, layered in trunks, in soil, in air. You are not walking in the present alone. You are walking in the accumulation of countless seasons, countless exchanges, countless lives. Humans too once lived by this forest wisdom. Ancient cultures saw themselves as part of these green communities, not masters over them. They understood that taking from the forest meant giving back, through rituals, through restraint, through reverence. To hunt, to harvest, to burn was done with awareness of the balance. Somewhere along the way this memory dimmed, but the forest remains, offering its lesson still. Science now confirms what ancient traditions always knew: time in forests heals. Forest bathing, the Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, lowers stress, strengthens immunity, restores calm. The chemicals trees release, phytoncides, soothe your nervous system even as oxygen fills your lungs. In forests you are reminded that you belong to something larger, that your body resonates with the green around you. The wisdom here is not abstract, it is physical, chemical, embodied. The forest does not teach with words but with presence. Its stillness slows you. Its diversity steadies you. Its air restores you. To listen is to breathe, to feel, to notice. Even the way forests move across landscapes carries wisdom. After fire, new growth emerges, first with grasses, then shrubs, then pioneer trees, and finally, over decades, the full community returns. Disturbance is not destruction but renewal, a cycle of resilience. You might see loss, the forest sees preparation for the next generation. And what of your place here? You too are part of this network. Your breath feeds trees with carbon dioxide. Your body one day will return to soil, feeding roots, becoming part of the cycle. You may walk as a visitor, but you are also a participant. Whether you notice or not, the exchange is constant. Pause once more and imagine yourself as a tree in this forest. Your roots touching others, your leaves catching sunlight, your trunk sheltering countless small lives. You are not alone. You never were. The forest reminds you, your strength lies not in isolation, but in connection. The wisdom of forests is subtle, patient, enduring. It tells you that cooperation is survival, that diversity is resilience, that giving is as essential as receiving. It tells you that endings feed beginnings, that memory is stored in rings and roots, that time flows in cycles, not lines. As you rest with these thoughts, you may feel the forest within yourself. Your own body is a network of cells, each dependent on others. Your own life is shaped by community, by relationships, by exchanges unseen. You are a forest in miniature, and the forest is a mirror of you. And as you see yourself reflected in the wisdom of forests, you begin to wonder, how have plants shaped not only themselves, but human history? Grain, fruit, and wood have guided civilizations, a reminder that the human story is also a plant's story. Plants and the human story, grain, fruit, and wood have guided the fate of civilizations. Plants carried humans across deserts, oceans, and empires. Every meal you eat is part of this ancient partnership. You realize that the human story is also a plant's story. The story of plants is not separate from your own story. From the first fire lit by ancestors to the food on your table tonight, plants have shaped human life. Their roots are intertwined with your history, their seeds scattered across the paths of empires, their leaves and grains folded into the fabric of every civilization. To understand humanity is to understand the plants that sustained it. Imagine a time long before cities, before villages, before agriculture. Humans lived as gatherers, roaming landscapes in search of roots, nuts, berries, and seeds. Their survival depended on reading the language of plants, which ones nourished, which ones poisoned, which ones healed. Knowledge was passed in whispers, in trials, sometimes in tragedy. A wrong berry meant sickness, the right leaf meant recovery. Already the human story was bound to the wisdom of green. Then came a turning point: agriculture. Around 10,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, people began to cultivate wheat and barley. No longer relying only on what could be gathered, they sowed seeds and harvested systematically. This act transformed humanity. Villages grew, food surpluses arose, populations expanded. Wheat was not just a crop, it was the foundation of settled life. Rice shaped Asia in similar ways, its paddies stretching across valleys, feeding billions across millennia. Maize or corn sustained civilizations in the Americas, the Maya, the Aztec, the Inca, each building their culture upon its golden kernels. Potatoes from the high Andes carried nutrition dense enough to support entire populations, later fueling Europe's growth when carried across oceans. Pause and consider this. When you eat bread, rice, corn, or potatoes, you are not just consuming food. You are tasting history, culture, migration. Each bite carries the memory of ancient farmers, of fields tended thousands of years ago, of seeds passed carefully from hand to hand. Plants also provided materials for building: wood-shaped homes, ships, tools, and fire. The cedar forests of Lebanon built temples and fleets. The bamboo of Asia became scaffolding, bridges, paper, and shelter. Even the paper on which human thoughts were first written came from plants. Papyrus along the Nile, rice paper in China, pulp from trees today. Without plants, human knowledge could not have traveled so far. And think of spices: cinnamon, cloves, pepper, nutmeg, tiny fragments of plants that reshaped the world. Wars were fought, oceans crossed, empires built and broken, all for the flavors hidden in bark and seeds. The spice trade linked continents, blending cultures and changing economies forever. A single tree's bark could shift the tide of history. Sugarcane, too, carried immense power. Sweetness, once rare, became a driving force of trade, colonization, and even conflict. Tobacco leaves, cotton fibers, coffee beans, tea leaves, each plant shaped global history, weaving wealth and suffering, beauty and exploitation into humanity's shared story. Plants were never passive, they guided destinies. Pause and look closer at your own daily rituals. Your morning may begin with coffee, seeds roasted and ground, infused into water. At midday, perhaps tea, leaves steeped in boiling water, carrying centuries of tradition from Asia. In the evening, wine or beer, plants fermented, carrying stories of grain, grape, and yeast. Every habit, every comfort is a conversation with plants, carried from ancient roots into modern life. Beyond food and drink, plants shaped language, art, and spirituality. Olive branches became symbols of peace. The lotus flower, rising pure from muddy waters, became a sign of enlightenment. Oaks, with their strength and endurance, became sacred to gods and empires. Myths grew from groves, rituals from harvests, festivals from the cycles of planting and reaping. Think too of medicine. Before laboratories, all remedies came from plants. Leaves brewed into teas, roots ground into powders, bark soaked into tinctures. Even today, much of modern medicine traces its origin back to the chemistry of plants. To heal the body has always meant turning to the green world. But plants have not only shaped human bodies, they have shaped human minds. Agriculture required cooperation, planning, and patience. To sow a seed and wait months for harvest is an act of trust in the unseen. This patience, repeated over generations, taught humans to think beyond the immediate, to envision futures, to build societies. Civilization itself is rooted in this lesson from plants. Growth requires time, community, and care. And yet the relationship is not one-sided. Just as plants sustained humans, humans carried plants across the world. Wheat, native to the Middle East, now grows in fields across continents. Potatoes, born in the Andes, now feed millions in Asia and Europe. Coffee, once confined to Ethiopia, is now a global drink. humans became the great dispersers, expanding the reach of plants, shaping ecosystems in both harmony and disruption. Some of these journeys carried shadow as well as light. Plantations of sugar, cotton, and tobacco were built on human suffering, exploitation, and slavery. The story of plants is also the story of human greed, conquest, and inequality. To honor plants honestly is to remember both their gifts and the pain entwined with them. Pause again and reflect. The very clothes you wear may be plant stories stitched into fabric. Cotton spun into thread, linen woven from flax, dyes drawn from roots and leaves. Plants shape not only what you eat, but what you touch, what you write on, what you live within. The human story is not only about what plants gave, but about what they continue to give. In a time of ecological change, you return again to them for answers. Plants store carbon, protect soil, regulate climate, offer medicine. Forests stand as lungs of the earth, crops as nourishment, wildflowers as guardians of pollinators. To care for plants is to care for your own survival. Tonight, as you breathe, you may feel this kinship. Every grain of rice, every sip of tea, every thread of cloth is a reminder. You are not separate from plants. You are woven into their story as they are woven into yours. Civilization is not built on stone alone, but on seed, root, and leaf. And if plants have guided the course of civilizations, they also guide the quiet rhythms of your nights. For even as you sleep, plants rest and dream in their own ways, entering cycles of renewal that mirror your own. The dreaming green. At night, leaves close, flowers fold, roots shift in silence. Plants enter their own rhythms of rest and renewal. As you drift into sleep, you feel yourself part of their dreaming. The garden breathes with you, steady, eternal, and soft. Night falls and the garden changes. The brightness fades, the hum of insects quiets. The warmth of the day dissolves into cool air. Shadows deepen, and with them something shifts among the plants. Though rooted, though silent, they too enter a rhythm of rest. You might think of night as absence, but to plants it is fullness, a time for renewal, for hidden activity, for slow dreaming. While you close your eyes, they fold their petals, shift their leaves, breathe differently. Their lives are tuned not only to light, but also to its absence. Flowers close their blossoms at dusk. Morning glories curl inward, lotus flowers sink back into water, tulips and daisies draw petals together as if tucking themselves to sleep. This nightly folding is called nyctinesty, a circadian rhythm that protects delicate parts from dew, conserves energy, and waits for pollinators to return with the dawn. What looks like sleep is in fact a patient anticipation of morning. Leaves also move in the dark. Many plants let their leaflets droop at night, conserving energy and reducing water loss. Legumes such as clover or beans fold their leaves in evening, then reopen them with sunrise. Even without light, their internal clocks continue, as though they too are dreaming of the sun's return. Roots shift in darkness, quietly expanding, absorbing water and minerals. In daylight, energy flows upward into leaves, fueling photosynthesis. At night, that energy moves downward, feeding the hidden parts of the plant. Growth continues underground, slow but steady, unseen but vital. Inside cells, chemistry changes. Starches stored during the day are broken down into sugars, fueling metabolism through the night. Hormones shift, guiding growth, repairing tissues, preparing for another day of light. This nightly cycle is essential. Without it, plants would wither. Just as you need sleep, plants need their own kind of rest. Pause and consider this. You are not so different. Your body repairs itself in sleep, your memories are consolidated, your hormones reset. Plants too restore themselves in darkness. You and the green world share this rhythm, this turning inward at night. Both of you live by cycles larger than your will, cycles written into the fabric of life itself. Some plants even release fragrance more strongly at night. Night-blooming jasmine fills the air with sweetness after dusk, attracting moths as pollinators. Evening primroses glow pale yellow in twilight, their blossoms unfurling when bees are gone, but moths are awake. In this way, the night is not silence, but another kind of song, sung in scent and pale petals. Forests at night hold their own mystery. By day they are filled with birdsong and light. By night they become cathedrals of quiet, trunks rising like pillars under starlight. The trees breathe still, exchanging gases, their chemistry tuned to the absence of sun. Their collective dreaming hums through the soil, through the mycorrhizal networks beneath your feet. And what of seeds? Many remain dormant, asleep in the soil, waiting for the right conditions to awaken. Their dreaming lasts longer than a night. It may last years, centuries, even millennia. Within their tiny shells, time pauses, memory is stored, potential waits. To see seeds as sleeping is not metaphor but truth. They rest, they dream, they prepare. Pause here and imagine lying in a meadow under stars. Around you flowers are folded, leaves are drooped, grasses are swaying gently. You are not alone in your rest. The plants around you are also in their nightly rhythm, their own kind of slumber. The air is cooler, richer with fragrance, softer with quiet. The whole garden is breathing slowly, evenly, as though in sync with you. Science now studies these rhythms with new precision. Sensitive instruments track movements invisible to your eyes, revealing that even at night, plants are far from still. They pulse, they sway, they adjust. Some researchers suggest plants may even possess forms of memory, not thought as humans know it, but a biochemical remembering of conditions, of cycles, of patterns. In this way, night may be part of their remembering, part of their slow dream of survival. Dreaming, then, is not only for animals. It may be for plants too, though expressed differently. Their dreams are not made of images, but of rhythms, not of stories, but of cycles. They dream in chemistry, in growth, in rest. Their dreaming is the continuation of their life, just as yours is. As you drift into your own sleep, imagine that you are entering the same rhythm as the garden. Your body slows, your breath deepens, your senses soften. The plants around you fold inward too, breathing differently, conserving, repairing, waiting. You and they are companions in this nightly pause, participants in the larger dreaming of the earth. This thought can be a comfort. You are not alone in resting. The forest rests, the meadow rests, the garden rests. Across the world, plants enter their quiet night, just as animals close their eyes. Even oceans join in, with algae shifting their photosynthesis, drifting into nighttime cycles. The planet itself turns to sleep, and in this dreaming green there is also renewal. Tomorrow, when light returns, petals will open, leaves will rise, roots will push deeper, stems will grow taller. Life will begin again, refreshed by its pause. The green world reminds you that rest is not an end, but a preparation, that sleep is a form of growth. Perhaps this is why lying under trees at night feels so calming. You sense their stillness, their trust in cycles, their patient renewal. They teach you by example that to pause is not to waste time, but to align with time. To rest is to prepare for light. Tonight, as you drift toward your own dreams, feel yourself part of this vast rhythm. The garden breathes with you. The forest breathes with you. The algae in the sea, the flowers in the field, the seeds in the soil, all share this moment of rest. Together you dream. And so the story of plants folds gently into silence, not an ending, but a resting. For life itself is a rhythm of light and dark, of growth and pause, of breath and stillness. As you close your eyes, you enter the dreaming green, carried by the same cycles that have guided Earth for millions of years. Into the quiet green night has deepened, and the story has carried you through roots and leaves, through seeds and forests, through the long companionship between plants and your own life. Now, as silence gathers, you feel the rhythm of the green world settling into your body. The plants are not finished. They breathe still in their patient cycles. They reach still in their slow motions. They dream still in ways unseen. But for you tonight, the story folds softly, like petals at dusk. You have walked with them through the underground webs of roots, through the luminous exchange of light, through the gifts of medicine and food, through the wisdom of forests that remind you that strength is found in connection. You have seen that your breath is their breath, your history their history, your body their offering. And now you rest together. The garden outside your window breathes with you. The forests across the earth sway in their quiet. The seeds beneath the soil wait patiently for their time. You are not apart from them. You are part of this dreaming green. So close your eyes. Let the quiet hold you as roots hold the earth. Let your breath slow as leaves slow with night. Let yourself become for this moment another part of the green world, resting, waiting, renewing. For the story of plants never ends. It continues in the rustle of branches, in the unfolding of blossoms, in the patience of seeds, in the very air you breathe. And even as you drift into sleep, you are carried gently within that story, steady, eternal, and soft.